Ready to dive into some seriously cool techniques for like really boosting your English skills.
Yeah.
Forget those old school methods. They feel like running a marathon.
Right.
We're all about turning this language learning journey into like an exhilarating sprint.
Yeah. It's amazing how many of us get like bogged down by those traditional ideas,
Totally.
This deep dive is going to be all about shaking things up.
Yeah.
And really like discovering how to make learning English way more dynamic.
I've definitely felt that frustration
Yeah.
of trying to cram in hours of study
Uh-huh.
only to end up feeling totally burned out.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
where's the fun in that?
Right. And that's where one of our first game changers comes in.
Okay.
Shorter, more focused study sessions.
I like it.
Instead of those marathon study sessions.
Yeah.
Try switching to bursts of like 20 to 30 minutes
Okay.
a few times a day.
Gotcha.
It's almost like you're giving your brain a quick workout multiple times a day instead of trying to exhaust it all at once.
Totally. Yeah, it fits way better into like our busy lives.
Exactly.
Now think about how you're choosing your learning materials.
Yeah.
Are you constantly bouncing between different apps, websites, textbooks? I mean,
Yeah.
I know I do.
It's like being at a buffet and wanting to try everything,
Yes.
but then ending up feeling overwhelmed
yes.
and not really enjoying anything fully.
Exactly. And you don't end up full either.
Right.
You just have a bunch of bites of things.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I love that analogy.
So that's why it's so important to create a core curriculum.
Okay.
Pick one or two resources that really resonate with you.
Yeah.
And stick with them for a solid chunk of time.
I like that.
Yeah.
So instead of spreading ourselves thin,
Uh-huh.
we're actually like building a solid foundation
Yes.
in one area before moving on.
Precisely. Now, let's talk about immersion.
Ooh, immersion.
You don't have to pack your bags and move to an English-speaking country to experience the benefits of being surrounded by the language.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
So how can we create that immersive experience without hopping on a plane?
Think about how much time you spend each day consuming entertainment
Right.
in your native language.
A lot.
What if you swap that out just 1 hour with
Uh,
something in English?
Ooh, so like watching my favorite show, but with English audio and subtitles.
Exactly.
Or listening to an English podcast while I walk the dog.
Exactly. You can also try following English-speaking creators on social media,
Oh, yeah.
reading online articles, or even labeling everyday objects around your house with English sticky notes.
Oh, okay. So it's
on.
all about weaving those little bits of English into our daily routine.
Exactly. And it's amazing how these seemingly small changes
Yeah,
can add up to create a much more immersive experience.
for sure.
Speaking of small changes,
Yeah.
have you explored the world of language learning apps?
I've definitely downloaded my fair share.
Okay.
They seem like a super convenient way to like squeeze in some practice, especially when life gets hectic.
Absolutely. They can be incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
But the key is using them strategically,
Okay.
not just hopping from one trendy app to the next.
Right. So it's not a magic solution.
Right.
It's more about finding the right app for our individual needs and then actually using it consistently.
You got it before you even choose an app. Think about what you struggle with most
Okay.
in English.
Yeah.
Is it grammar,
Uh-huh.
vocabulary, or conversation?
Right.
Then look for an app that specializes in that area.
So it's like choosing a personal trainer for our language skills.
Yes.
One that targets our specific weaknesses and helps us get stronger.
Exactly. And once you've found your perfect app match,
Yeah.
commit to using it regularly. Even just a few minutes each day can make a huge difference.
Okay.
Remember, consistency over quantity.
Okay. Consistency seems to be a recurring theme here.
Yes.
But let's be honest, there's nothing quite like actually speaking the language, right?
You're absolutely right.
Like that's when it all comes together.
Yes, and the biggest myth we need to debunk is that you have to wait until you feel ready to start speaking.
Wait, are you saying that we should just dive into conversations even if we're still making grammar mistakes
Exactly.
or feeling shy?
Exactly. The sooner you start speaking, the faster you'll progress.
Okay.
Think about how little kids learn.
Yeah,
They don't wait until they've memorized grammar rules before they start chattering away.
that's so true. They just jump right in and figure it out as they go.
Exactly.
So what are some ways we can embrace that fearless approach?
One simple but effective technique is self-talk. Basically narrating your day in English,
Okay.
even if it's just in your head.
So I could be like, okay, time to make breakfast. What should I have today?
Precisely.
All in English.
Yes.
Even if I'm just talking to myself.
It might feel strange at first, but it gets you thinking and forming sentences in English naturally.
I love that. And
Yeah.
it's something I can do anytime, anywhere.
Yeah.
But what about the fear factor? I know a lot of people, myself included, get nervous about speaking, especially in the beginning.
That's completely normal, but remember the goal of language is communication, not perfection.
Right.
Native speakers are usually more than happy to help you out, and they'll appreciate your effort.
Okay, that definitely takes some of the pressure off.
Yeah.
It's about progress over perfection, embracing those mistakes as stepping stones.
Exactly. Now, speaking of progress, let's talk about goal setting.
Okay,
So many language learners get stuck because their goals are either too vague or too overwhelming.
it's like trying to climb a mountain without a map or any clear idea of where you're headed. You might end up wandering around aimlessly and getting discouraged.
Exactly. The key is to break down those big, audacious goals into smaller, more achievable milestones.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, instead of saying, I want to be fluent,
Yeah.
try something like, I'm going to learn 5 new verbs this week, or I'll have a 5-minute conversation in English with a language partner.
So it's about setting those mini challenges that feel exciting and attainable.
Exactly. And when you reach those milestones, don't forget to celebrate.
Ooh, yes.
Give yourself a little reward, acknowledge your progress, and let that motivation fuel you forward.
I love that it's like giving ourselves a pat on the back for every step in the right direction.
Now let's talk about one of the biggest secrets to language learning success.
Okay?
And this one might surprise you.
Oh.
It's not about talent, it's about consistency.
Wait, really? So you're saying that even if we don't think we're naturally good at languages,
Yes.
we can still become fluent by simply being consistent?
You gotta think of it like going to the gym.
Okay.
You don't get ripped after one workout.
Right?
It's about showing up regularly and putting in the work consistently over time.
Yeah.
The same goes for language learning.
So even if it's just 15 minutes a day,
Yeah,
the key is to make it a habit, something we do without fail.
precisely. And to make it easier to stick with it, try incorporating your study time into an existing routine.
Right.
Maybe you listen to an English podcast while you commute, or you practice vocabulary flashcards while you're waiting for your coffee to brew.
That's a great tip. It's about finding those little pockets of time and turning them into language learning opportunities.
Exactly. Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's revisit the topic of making mistakes.
Okay.
It can be so tempting to wait until we feel perfect before speaking or writing, but that's actually one of the biggest roadblocks to fluency.
Oh, the perfectionism trap.
Yeah.
I've definitely fallen into that one myself. It's like this fear of sounding silly or making a grammatical error that just like paralyzes us.
And it's something we need to let go of.
Yeah.
Mistakes are inevitable, and they're actually the best way to learn.
So instead of avoiding mistakes, we should embrace them as opportunities to learn and grow.
Exactly. Shift your focus from perfection to progress.
I like it.
Celebrate every step forward, no matter how small.
That's such a liberating mindset shift. Takes the
Mhm.
pressure off and allows us to enjoy the learning process more.
Precisely. And on that note, we'll take a quick pause here, but when we come back, we'll be diving into even more strategies and techniques to help you unleash your inner English speaker.
Sounds good.
Welcome back. Now, before the break, we were talking about embracing mistakes.
Right?
But let's face it, sometimes the best way to learn is by actually talking to native speakers.
Okay, real life conversations.
Yeah.
This is where the rubber meets the road.
Right.
But for some people, that could be super intimidating.
It's understandable to feel nervous.
Yeah.
But you'd be surprised how welcoming and encouraging most native speakers are.
Really?
They know how hard it is to learn a new language.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. That's reassuring to hear.
Yeah.
But where do we even find these conversation partners? Do we have to like travel to an English-speaking country?
Not at all. You can find them right from your couch.
Okay.
Online language exchange platforms are a game changer.
Language exchange platforms. Tell me more.
Think of it like a global pen pal system for language learning.
Oh, okay.
You connect with people who are learning your language, and in exchange, they help you practice English.
Okay.
You can chat online, do video calls, whatever works for you.
So it's like having a language buddy who's also learning and going through the same challenges.
Exactly. And if you prefer face-to-face interaction,
Yeah.
see if there are any English conversation groups or meetups in your city. You might be surprised at how many opportunities there are to practice right in your own community.
Oh, awesome. I'll definitely check those out.
Okay.
Let's say we found our conversation partner. We're ready to go. But that fear of making mistakes creeps back in. How do we deal with that?
Here's a powerful reframe. Instead of seeing mistakes as failures,
Yeah.
see them as valuable feedback.
So it's like each time I make a mistake, it's actually helping me pinpoint what I need to work on.
Precisely. It's showing you exactly where the gaps in your knowledge are so you can focus your efforts on filling them. Okay, yeah, that's a much more constructive way to look at it. Okay, so we've got our mindset right now. Let's talk strategy. How do we set goals that actually move us towards fluency without feeling overwhelming?
You hit the nail on the head. Achievable goals are key.
Right.
Instead of that huge, vague goal of becoming fluent,
Yeah.
break it down into smaller, concrete steps.
So instead of trying to climb Mount Everest in one go,
Right.
we're setting up base camps along the way.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
So instead of I want to be fluent, try this week, I'll master the present perfect tense, or I'll watch one English movie without subtitles.
Okay.
These smaller goals are easier to track, and each one gets you closer to that big picture.
Right. And each time we hit one of those mini goals, we celebrate, right? Give ourselves a little reward to keep that motivation going.
Exactly. Celebrate those wins, no
Yeah.
matter how small they seem, they all add up. Now, remember that secret weapon we talked about earlier, consistency?
Yes.
Well, it's especially crucial when it comes to actually speaking.
Okay.
So you're saying that even if we don't have a natural knack for languages, we can still become fluent speakers just by practicing consistently.
That's right. Think of it like learning a musical instrument.
Okay.
Nobody picks up a guitar and plays like Jimi Hendrix on day one.
Right.
It takes practice, and it takes showing up even on the days you don't feel like it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
The same is true for speaking practice.
So the key is to make speaking practice a non-negotiable part of our routine,
Yes.
even if it's just for a few minutes each day.
Absolutely. And one of the easiest ways to do this is by incorporating it into your daily life.
Oh, okay.
You can narrate your activities in English,
Okay.
even if it's just in your head.
Oh, like we talked about earlier, the self-talk technique.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of repetition.
Okay.
You can also try shadowing, listen to an audio clip in English and repeat it out loud, trying to match the speaker's pronunciation and intonation.
Oh, that sounds like a fun way to improve pronunciation and fluency. Are there any resources you recommend for finding good shadowing material?
Plenty. There are apps, websites, even YouTube channels dedicated to shadowing practice. Look for material that interests you.
Okay.
That's key to staying motivated.
Gotcha. Okay, so we've got self-talk and shadowing, but eventually we'll want to start having actual conversations with other people, right?
Absolutely. And when you're ready for that step, remember to go easy on yourself. Don't expect to sound perfect or speak fluently right away. Focus on getting your message across and enjoying the interaction.
So it's all about taking those small steps, building confidence, and not getting bogged down by the fear of making mistakes.
You got it. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about something that can really help us turbocharge our learning,
Okay.
language learning apps.
Okay, we touched on this briefly before,
Yeah.
but I'm eager to hear more about how to use apps effectively.
Yeah,
There are so many out there, it can be overwhelming to choose.
it definitely can.
Yeah.
But that's why it's so important to be strategic about your app selection before you download anything. Take some time to reflect on your learning style and goals.
Okay.
What are your strengths and weaknesses?
Do you prefer visual, auditory, or kinesthetic learning?
Right.
What specific skills are you trying to improve?
So it's kind of like choosing a workout routine.
Yeah.
You wouldn't just pick a random exercise program.
Right.
You'd consider your fitness level, your goals,
Yeah.
and what you enjoy doing.
Exactly. And just like with exercise,
Okay.
consistency is key when it comes to using language learning apps.
So instead of downloading a dozen different apps and using them sporadically,
Right.
choose one or two
Yeah.
that align with your needs and commit to using them regularly.
Precisely.
So it's all about finding those apps that feel like a good fit and then making them a part of our daily routine.
Exactly. And remember, apps are just one tool in your language learning toolbox.
Okay.
Don't rely on them exclusively. Combine them with other strategies like immersion speaking practice and goal setting for a truly well-rounded approach.
That makes total sense. It's about finding the right mix of tools and techniques that work for us.
Now let's go back to the idea of goal setting.
We've already talked about breaking down big goals into smaller milestones.
Yeah.
But there's another crucial element that can help us stay on track.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What is it?
Tracking your progress.
Oh,
It's so easy to feel like we're not making progress when we're focused on that distant finish line of fluency.
right.
But if we break down the journey into smaller steps and then track those steps, we can actually see how far we've come.
So instead of just saying, I want to be fluent,
Yeah,
we could track how many new words we've learned each week or how many minutes we've spent speaking English.
exactly. And there are so many ways to track your progress.
Oh, cool.
You can use a simple notebook, a spreadsheet, or even a dedicated language learning app. The key is to find a system that works for you and that helps you visualize your progress.
And by seeing that progress, It can really boost our motivation, right? It's like proof that we're moving in the right direction.
Exactly. And it can also help you identify areas where you might need to adjust your approach.
I
For example, if you're consistently struggling with a particular grammar point, you might need to spend more time practicing it or find a different way to learn it.
That's a great point.
Ah.
It's about using that data to make our learning more effective now. Before we move on, I want to circle back to one of the most important themes we've been talking about, consistency. Why is it so crucial for language learning success?
Because consistency builds momentum. Think of it like pushing a heavy object.
Okay,
It takes a lot of effort to get it moving at first, but once it gains momentum, it becomes easier to keep it going.
so it's about establishing that rhythm, that habit of showing up for our language learning every day, even when we don't feel like it.
Exactly. And here's a little secret.
Okay,
Doesn't have to be a huge time commitment.
okay.
Even just 5 or 10 minutes of focused practice each day is better than skipping a day altogether.
So it's about finding that sweet spot where we're challenging ourselves, but not overwhelming ourselves.
Exactly. Now, let's revisit one of the biggest fears that many language learners face.
Oh.
The fear of making mistakes.
Oh, that fear can be so paralyzing.
It can keep us from speaking up, participating in conversations, or even trying new things. Absolutely. But here's the thing, mistakes are not the enemy.
Oh.
In fact, they're our best teachers.
So instead of trying to avoid mistakes, we should actually welcome them as opportunities to learn.
Exactly. Every time you make a mistake, you're getting valuable feedback on what you need to work on.
Oh,
It's a chance to adjust your approach, fill in the gaps in your knowledge, and get closer to fluency.
that's such a powerful shift in perspective. It's about seeing mistakes as stepping stones, not stumbling blocks.
Precisely. And when you start to see mistakes in that light, you'll find that the fear starts to fade away. You'll be more willing to take risks, experiment with the language, and ultimately make faster progress.
That makes so much sense. It's about embracing the messy, imperfect process of learning.
Exactly. And remember, everyone makes mistakes, even native speakers. It's part of being human.
So it's about giving ourselves permission to be imperfect, to stumble, to learn, and to grow.
Precisely. And speaking of growth, let's shift our focus to one of the most powerful strategies for accelerating your language learning, speaking from day one.
Now, we've touched on this before, but I think it's worth diving a little deeper.
Yeah.
Why is it so important to start speaking early on, even if we're not feeling confident yet?
Because the sooner you start using the language actively, the faster you'll internalize it. It's like learning to ride a bike. You can read all the books and watch all the videos you want, but until you actually get on the bike and start pedaling, you're not going to truly learn how to ride.
That's a great analogy. It's about getting out of our heads and actually putting the language into practice.
Exactly. And don't worry about making mistakes.
Right.
Remember, there are friends. The more you speak, the more comfortable you'll become with the sounds, the rhythms, and the flow of the language.
So it's about training our mouths and our brains to work together to produce those English sounds.
Precisely.
Oh.
And there are so many fun and easy ways to start speaking. One of my favorites is self-talk, which we've already discussed, but you can also try singing along to English songs,
Uh-huh.
repeating phrases from your favorite movies or TV shows, or even recording yourself speaking, and then listening back to identify areas where you can improve.
Those are all great ideas.
Mm.
It's about finding those opportunities to play with the language,
Yes.
to experiment and to have fun with it.
Exactly. And remember, the more you speak, the more confident you'll become. You'll start to see yourself as an English speaker, and that shift in identity can make a huge difference in your motivation and your progress.
That's a really powerful point. It's about embracing that new identity, allowing ourselves to step into that role of an English speaker.
Precisely. Now, let's circle back to one of the key strategies we've been talking about throughout this deep dive immersion.
Okay, immersion. We've already discussed some great ways to create that immersive experience without having to travel. But do you have any other tips or suggestions?
Absolutely. One of the things I always recommend is finding a community of English speakers, either online or in person. It could be a language exchange group, a book club, a sports team, or even just a group of friends who enjoy chatting in English.
So it's about surrounding ourselves with people who speak the language, even if it's just virtually.
Exactly. And the great thing about being part of a community is that you have a built-in support system.
Oh, I like
You
this.
can ask questions, practice your speaking, and learn from each other's experiences.
That's such a valuable resource. It's like having a cheerleading squad for our language learning journey.
Precisely. And it can also help you stay motivated and accountable.
Yeah.
When you know that you have people who are expecting you to show up and participate, you're more likely to stick with it.
That makes total sense. It's all about creating that sense of community and belonging.
Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about another crucial element of successful language learning: goal setting.
Okay, goal setting?
Hmm.
We've already touched on the importance of setting clear, achievable goals.
Yes,
But do you have any other insights or tips to share?
absolutely. One of the things I always emphasize is the importance of aligning your goals with your values.
What do you mean by that?
Well, think about why you're learning English in the first place.
Okay.
What are your motivations? What do you hope to achieve? Once you have a clear understanding of your ascension, why you can set goals that are meaningful and inspiring to you.
So it's about connecting our language learning goals to something deeper, something that resonates with our core values and aspirations.
Exactly. And when your goals are aligned with your values, you're much more likely to stay motivated and committed.
That makes perfect sense. It's about finding that intrinsic motivation that drives us from within.
Precisely. Now let's talk about another crucial element of goal setting: making sure that your goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. We often refer to this as the SMART goal framework.
Okay, the SMART goal framework. I've heard of that before. Can you break it down for us?
Of course. So a SMART goal is
Okay.
specific.
Uh-huh.
It clearly defines what you want to achieve.
Okay.
Measurable. You can track your progress and determine whether you've met the goal.
Okay.
Achievable. It's realistic and attainable given your resources and constraints.
Right.
Relevant, it aligns with your overall language learning goals and aspirations.
Yeah.
And time-bound, it has a specific deadline or time frame.
So instead of saying, I want to improve my English,
Yeah.
a SMART goal might be, I will learn 50 new vocabulary words related to my field of study within the next 2 weeks.
Exactly. That's a great example of a SMART goal.
Yep.
It's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
And by setting SMART goals, we're setting ourselves up for success.
Yeah.
Right? We're giving ourselves a clear roadmap and a sense of direction.
Precisely. Now let's shift our focus to one of the most important strategies for staying motivated and on track with your language learning goals: creating a supportive environment.
Okay, a supportive environment. I love that idea, but what exactly does that entail?
It's all about surrounding yourself with people, resources, and experiences that encourage and support your language learning journey. It could involve joining a language exchange group, finding a conversation partner, attending English language events, or even just creating a dedicated study space in your home that's free from distractions.
So it's about creating a space, both physically and mentally, where we feel comfortable and motivated to learn.
Exactly. And it's also about seeking out positive role models and mentors who inspire you and can offer guidance and support.
I love that it's like having a cheerleading squad for our language learning journey.
Precisely. And don't underestimate the power of positive self-talk. Encourage yourself. Celebrate your successes and remind yourself of why you're learning English in the first place.
That's such great advice. It's about cultivating that inner cheerleader who believes in us and our ability to achieve our goals.
Exactly. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about a topic that often comes up in the context of language learning: perfectionism.
Oh, perfectionism. I think we can all relate to that struggle. It's that voice in our heads that tells us we need to be perfect, that we can't make mistakes, that we're not good enough.
And it can be incredibly debilitating. Perfectionism often leads to procrastination, fear of failure, and ultimately giving up.
So how do we break free from those perfectionistic tendencies and embrace a more growth-oriented mindset?
It starts with recognizing that perfection is an illusion. No one is perfect. And that's okay. In fact, our imperfections are what make us unique and interesting.
So it's about embracing our imperfections and seeing them as part of the learning process.
Exactly. And it's also about shifting our focus from the outcome to the process. Instead of obsessing over being a perfect, focus on enjoying the journey, on learning and growing, and on celebrating every step forward.
It's such a liberating mindset shift. It takes the pressure off and allows us to enjoy the ride more.
Precisely. And remember, language learning is a lifelong journey. There will always be more to learn, more to discover, more to explore.
So it's about embracing that journey and seeing it as an adventure, not a destination.
Exactly. And the more you embrace that adventurous spirit, the more fun and rewarding the journey will be.
That's such an inspiring message. It's a reminder that language learning is a gift, not a chore. It's an opportunity to expand our horizons, connect with new people, and experience the world in a whole new way.
Precisely. And on that note, we'll take a quick pause here, but when we come back, we'll be diving into even more strategies and techniques to help you unleash your inner English speaker.
All right, we're back. and ready to keep exploring these amazing strategies for like supercharging your English skills. Before the break, we were talking about letting go of perfectionism
Yes.
and embracing the journey. It's such a powerful shift in perspective.
It really is. And speaking of powerful shifts, one of the most impactful things you can do is change how you view mistakes. Instead of seeing them as setbacks, imagine them as stepping stones to fluency.
I love that analogy.
Yeah,
It takes the pressure off
it does.
and turns those oops moments into valuable learning experiences.
Exactly. Each mistake reveals a little gap in your knowledge,
Uh-huh.
giving you a chance to fill it in and strengthen your skills. It's like a little puzzle piece clicking into place.
So instead of beating ourselves up for those mistakes, we should actually be thanking them for showing us what we need to work on.
Precisely. And don't forget to celebrate those aha moments when you finally grasp a tricky grammar rule or nail that pronunciation you've been struggling with.
Yeah.
Those small victories fuel your motivation and keep you moving forward.
It's all about those little wins along the way.
Oh.
Okay, let's talk about something that can feel like a major hurdle for a lot of language learners, speaking from day one. It can be intimidating to put ourselves out there, especially when we're still feeling unsure of ourselves.
I totally get it. But trust me, the sooner you start speaking, the better. Think of it like learning to swim. You wouldn't just read a book about swimming and expect to jump in the deep end, would you?
No.
You'd start by getting in the water, splashing around, and gradually building your confidence.
So it's about taking those small steps, embracing the awkwardness, and knowing that it's okay to make mistakes.
Exactly. And remember, you don't have to jump into a full-blown conversation right away. Start with baby steps. Practice speaking aloud to yourself. Narrate your daily activities in English, or even try singing along to English songs.
That's great advice. It's
Yeah.
about finding those low-pressure ways to get comfortable using the language out loud.
Precisely. And as you start to feel more confident, you can gradually increase the challenge. Find a language exchange partner, join a conversation group, or even challenge yourself to strike up a conversation with a native speaker.
So it's about creating that upward spiral, taking those small wins, building confidence, and gradually pushing ourselves out of our comfort zones.
You got it. And remember, the more you speak, the more those English sounds and rhythms will start to feel natural and effortless.
Okay, so we've talked about embracing mistakes, speaking from day one, and celebrating progress. What are some other key takeaways from this deep dive that we can apply to our language learning journeys?
One of the most important things to remember is that there is no one-size-fits-all approach to language learning. What works for one person might not work for another. So it's all about experimenting, finding what resonates with you, and creating your own personalized learning path.
So it's about being curious, trying different things, and discovering what sparks joy in our learning process.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to get creative. Use your imagination, have fun with it, and make the learning process your own.
That's such great advice. It's about reclaiming the joy of learning and making it an adventure, not a chore.
Precisely. And as you embark on this adventure, remember to be kind to yourself. Language learning takes time and effort, so celebrate your progress, embrace the challenges, and never give up on your dream of mastering English.
I love that message. It's about persistence, resilience, and believing in ourselves.
And remember, you are not alone on this journey. There are countless others who are also learning English, facing similar challenges and celebrating similar victories. So connect with others, share your experiences, and support each other along the way.
That's a beautiful reminder that we're all in this together, and by supporting each other, we can create a more vibrant and welcoming community of language learners.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
keep exploring, keep practicing, and keep embracing the joy of learning English. The world is waiting to hear your voice.
What a perfect way to wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for sharing your insights and wisdom with us. I feel so inspired and energized to put all of these strategies into practice.
It's been a pleasure. And remember, you have everything you need to succeed. So go out there, embrace the challenge, and have fun with it.
And to all of our amazing listeners out there, keep learning, keep growing, and keep reaching for your language goals. Until next time, happy learning.